Again, good evening, everyone. My name is Haley Jingles, and I am the chairman of the Public Assembly Facilities Commission. We want to welcome you all to the Education Building here at the Winston-Salem Fairgrounds. I'd like to start by recognizing our elected officials that are here in the room tonight. So if you would please stand or give us a wave from where you are, we would appreciate that. In the House tonight, we have Councilmember John Larson. We have Councilmember Dee Dee Adams. And we also have County Commissioner Al-Amin. Thank you all for being here tonight. Again, this meeting is being hosted by the Fair Planning Committee and the Public Assembly Facilities Commission at the request of the Mayor and the City Council. I want to also introduce my fellow commission members. Here with me tonight, we have Cindy Strine, who is the Assistant Chairman for this committee. We have Billy Rich and Jim White. At this time, I'm going to hand it over to Kathleen Garber, who is the Chairman of the Fair Planning Committee.
Thank you, Chairman Jingles. I'd like to take a moment to introduce our Fair Planning Committee members who are present tonight. We have Karen McHugh, Willie Cumbo, and Odell Cheek. We also have a number of members, and Rachel Barron just arrived. We also have a number of members of our committee who could not attend tonight, so just wanted to recognize that we are not all here this evening. Our process this evening is going to be very simple. We're going to call two names at the time in the order that the speakers signed up. When your name is called, please come to the podium. We ask that you state your name, where you're from, then give us your suggestion on the name change and why. You'll be given 1 minute for your comments, and we ask that at the moment that you've been asked to stop, that you respect our speaker's time and end your comments. This is a listening session for our committee, and for that reason, we will not be responding to questions. We have staff members on hand to assist if something needs to be clarified, but we ask that you please make your naming suggestion, offer support for it, and end your comments. As Chairman Jingles began us on time, we do plan to end promptly at 8 p.m. tonight. To be sure that you've all been heard, you'll find comment cards at the table in the back of the room. If you were not able to speak tonight because of time restraints, we do invite you to complete a card and leave it on the table in the back. To get us started, it's important to the committee and to the Public Assembly Facilities Commission that we share the pillars of our fair. We would like you to keep these items in mind as you offer names. To do that, I invite our commission chairman to go over these.
So our 5 pillars to keep in mind as we do this tonight are regional reach. The reach of the fair extends outside of the triad to all of Northwest North Carolina and up to Southern Virginia. The agriculture. The fair is an opportunity to exhibit, teach, and learn all aspects of agriculture in our region, including plants, fruits, vegetables, and livestock. To educate. The fair is an opportunity for all members of the community and region to participate in all aspects of learning and creation from all walks of life. Showcases include quilting, baking, canning, photography, horticulture, livestock, etc. The family atmosphere. The fair makes it a priority to include safe, fun, and affordable options for all ages and family sizes. Entertainment. New and constant changing entertainment is an important aspect of attracting and returning fair individuals and families interested in attending the fair.
Thank you. I'd like to call Sam Dixon and James Knox to the podium, please. You may proceed.
My name is Sam Dixon. I live at 1452 Cherry Street. I live in this neighborhood. I retired here in Winston-Salem 17 years ago, and I bring my family from Maryland and Pennsylvania down here to this fair every year since I've been here. If you change the name of the Dixie Classic Fair, I will no longer attend. And this is for the planning board. I will do everything that I can to get other people not to attend. This here is Dixie cups. And these Dixie cups people drink to do one thing, quench their thirst. They ain't talking about the South. They ain't talking about Dixie. We need to keep that in mind. What do you expect us to do? Change this to D cups or politically correct cups? Folks, This meeting should have never happened. 130 years or more. What are you guys thinking about? Thank you.
If Andrew Winfrey and Keith Hash can make their way to the podium.
Name is James Knox. I live at 125 Buckhaven Court, Rural Hall, inside Winston-Salem city limits. Okay, I think we should keep the word Dixie because it's Southern heritage. If you're born in the South, it's your heritage. And like the man said back here, Dixie's all over the place. It doesn't necessarily, if that hurts your feelings, then I don't know what to tell you. It's everywhere. But if you want to know a word that hurts my feelings, it's Democrat. Because that is truly the word that represents slavery, hate, the Ku Klux Klan, poll taxes. And you honor the two biggest slave supporters, Jefferson Davis, the president of the South, and Andrew Jackson, who is also your honoree and your person that you supposedly started your party. He had slaves. What are you going to do about that?
Sir, your time is up. Please wrap up your comments.
And Antifa, that's the other thing. Thank you.
Andrew Winfrey, Winston-Salem. 156 years ago, after abolition in the southern states, and 154 years after abolition in the United States proper, we are a half century past any living memory of the vile practice of slavery. No one from that generation lived to witness the Civil Rights Act of 1964 ending the practice of institutionalized racism here in the United States. Though it was a hard-fought battle, through the decades, we developed new perspectives, allowing bridges to be built and trust to grow, creating a new America effectively by the end of the 1990s. I don't think anybody would disagree about that. In the last decade, through the practices of pandering, exploitation, and division, we've seen an emergence of a bizarre hysteria that has caused the bridges of the past to be broken into dangerous disrepair, and hard-won trust seem to be lost. This unrest created by the profiteers of fear and exploitation appears to be purposely designed to divide Americans, leaving peoples of all races vulnerable to those who enrich themselves through division. Therefore, I find the demand to change the name of the Dixie Classic Fair to be an emotional hijacking.
Sir, your time
and
is
a
up.
slap in the face of the people that work so hard to change things. Thank you.
Keith Hash and James Blackburn.
Keith Hash, Winston-Salem. I would like to state my total agreement with the name change of the Dixie Classic Fair as something more sensitive to the painful reminders of the past. Therefore, at this time, I would also like to call for the renaming of the Lawrence Joel Veterans Memorial Coliseum. While Lawrence Joel was deserving of his CMH, he earned it in an undeclared, unjust, illegal war that resulted in the deaths of 2 million Vietnamese civilians. Vietnamese Americans themselves were victimized by open racial cruelty, and the American population at large, the media, and the government. Surely this name is a painful reminder of the past as well. But why stop there? It is my contention that the name Lawrence Joel is not only a reminder of racism and cruelty, the very word Coliseum has the same characteristics. Tens of millions of people crossing racial barriers from Europe and Africa were forced into slavery by the Romans as the American European descent. Names of the Coliseum certainly serves as a painful reminder of the
Sir,
past.
your time is up.
If the name changes, I won't come back to the fair at all.
Steve Mathis and Wayne Cheek.
James Blackburn from Winston-Salem. Name should be kept Dixie Classic Fair. Instead of spending my minute discussing the history of the word Dixie, I'm here to discuss what a waste of time this is of our tax dollars. Even though we are at the south of the Mason-Dixie line, so unless we're gonna relocate our state, we're gonna keep using the word. But why not use our time and our money on more important things like the city's homeless or pay increases for our police and firefighters? I've been going to the fair for 27 straight years, and I won't attend again if the fair has changed, as I feel many in this room will do the same. This will be a major financial hit to the community, as the city will have a major drop-off in attendance, not to mention how folks in other cities won't be able to find the fair as well, as a different name would have that happen. Look at the numbers the Winston-Salem Journal printed. 8,000 people responded, and many of those are against the name change. Why change when a small percentage is offended when the majority of the city
Sir,
doesn't
your
want to
time is
change?
up.
Why cater to the minority?
My name is Wayne Cheek, and I live in Forsyth County. I've lived here all my life. And first of all, it's just my opinion. I don't think the name of the fair should be changed. Some so-called preacher says it offends him because the word Dixie. But the Mason-Dixon line was established 50-some years before the Civil War. Got nothing to do with slavery or the Civil War. If you don't believe it, go back and read your history books. But, you know, this will end up in the chairpersons to make the decision. And in the past, every decision they make is based on how many votes they can get. So if they can change the name of the fair and get a lot of votes, it will be changed. They'll take the name Dixie away from it. But thanks for letting me share. I think we all ought to stand and sing Dixie. Thank you.
My name is Steve Mathis, born, raised, educated, and worked in Winston-Salem for 62 years. I searched the North Carolina Secretary of State's business registry listing for all North Carolina companies with the name Dixie in it. There are 493 names in the state of North Carolina with companies with the name Dixie. I seriously doubt when the name was selected for these companies there was really any racial implication or malice involved. It was just a name. There are way too many other real problems in this great city to deal with compared to some individuals' perceived problem over a name. Thank you.
Reverend Dr. Felicia Piggott-Long and Reverend Lisa Schwartz.
Good evening. My name is Reverend Dr. Felicia Piggott-Long from Winston-Salem. I do believe that the name should be changed. I think I said Piedmont Classic Fair, but whatever. I just wanted to leave classic. I wanted Dixie out because in 1859, that song, I wish I was in the land of cotton. Old times there are not forgotten. Look away, Dixieland. This is an opportunity for us as parents and educators to teach our children that we need to get rid of things that make people uncomfortable as minorities. When we talk about things that are reminiscent of slavery, we try to teach our children all the time. I am a teacher on the college level and the high school level. We are constantly teaching our children to pay attention to cultural diversity. We must not make people feel uncomfortable with words like Dixie. I know it's been there 137 years,
Ma'am, your
but
time
that
is
doesn't
up.
make it right.
Christine Greider and Katie Sonnen-Lee.
My name's Lisa Schwartz. I'm from here in Winston-Salem, and I support changing the name of the fair to the Winston-Salem Fair. I believe that's what it was. I believe it was originally the Winston-Salem Fair until 1956, when one gentleman changed the name of the fair. He didn't ask the Facilities Commission or the Fair Planning Committee. He just did it. And that was a time when African-American residents were not allowed to come to the fair until the last day. So that's an important historical thing. I love the fair, and I want the fair to be fair. I want the fair and Winston-Salem and Forsyth County to welcome all residents. And if people say, ouch, that makes me hurt, I want to listen to that. I want to hear that. And I think we're called to a new century and a new legacy to lay down in Winston-Salem, a city for all people. Thank you.
Good evening. My name is Christine Greider, and I'm from Pofftown. I've been coming to this fair for over 20 years with my husband and children, 4 children. We've all won numerous ribbons. I've participated greatly in this fair, and I love it. I want you to imagine that you're inadvertently stepping on someone's foot, and they tap you on the shoulder and say, hey, you're hurting my foot. Do you say, sorry, I like my foot there? By no means. You say, I'm sorry, and you move your foot. And we should be apologetic to the people we've offended with this name, because it's a real thing, not a made-up thing. And so I am in favor of changing the name of this fair to the Piedmont Fair or the Carolina Fair. I don't really care. but let's honor the people who are fellow citizens, who breathe the same air we breathe and live here and have the same rights we do. Let's honor them and change this name.
Bob Mills and Jonathan Lanford.
My name is Katie Sonnen Lee. I'm from Winston-Salem. Dixie is a song. It's a mythic place based on a country that supported enslaving people and fought against the United States of America to preserve that legacy. It helped revive the Ku Klux Klan. It was sung by segregationists protesting integration of schools. Recently, it was sung here in Winston-Salem by the Confederate defenders to show support for the statue which used to stand in downtown. My ancestors fought in the Confederate Army and in the Revolutionary War, in World War II, in Vietnam, and other wars. My children are descendants of Robert E. Lee. I don't want to erase that history from my family. I want us to sit with it, process it, and understand it for what it was, and how we can do better as a family and as a community. There's a lot to be proud of in the South that isn't rooted in slavery, racism, oppression, and sedition. Why do those few years out of the last 250 get to define us forever? Why can't we claim new voices and new identities that embrace all Southern people? The name of the fair must be changed so that all
Ma'am,
members
your
of our
time is
community
up.
feel welcome and supported.
My name's Bob Mills. I'm from Winston-Salem, lived here since 1967. I want to quote from the book of Romans, Paul's letter to the Romans, chapter 14, verse 13. Therefore, let us not pass judgment on one another any longer, but rather decide never to put a stumbling stone or hindrance in the way of a brother or sister. Never put a hindrance in the way of a brother or sister. And we've been putting a brother and sister, for them, we've been putting hindrances. Let us not do that any longer. Let us change, give up this name for a better name. Thank you.
Craig Schwab and Reverend Dr. Carl Manuel Jr.
John Lanford. I've been in North Carolina for 27 years, Winston for 12. And I believe the name of the fair should be the Winston-Salem Classic Fair. And I believe this really represents the best of what we have today for today's Winston-Salem. Thank you.
Craig Schaub, Winston-Salem. Sticks and stones may break my bones, and names can break my spirit. Can break my sense of being included in community, a sense of breaking my vision of equity. A name can microaggress and micro-abuse and push out. Let's change the name.
Good afternoon. My name is Reverend Dr. Carl Linwood Manuel Jr. I serve as pastor of Burkhead United Methodist Church, 5820 Solace Creek Parkway. Like I said to committee members of the City Council about a couple of weeks ago, ladies and gentlemen, citizens of Winston-Salem, this is not 1969. This is 2019. A lot of things have changed. And if we swallow the changes that have taken place in Washington, D.C., and Raleigh, North Carolina, then I think we need to search our hearts and our minds and let our Lord and Savior Jesus Christ lead us in the right direction. Be careful how you treat people. I've been in North Carolina all my life. I have never witnessed where the state of North Carolina or the city of Winston-Salem has ever catered to minority people. So we need to make sure we have an understanding. But we have young people, which is my pet peeve, that we need to make sure that when they come, that everybody feels comfortable.
Sir, your time is up.
Thank you. God bless you.
Reverend Dr. Peter Barnes and Rooney Craig.
Ladies and gentlemen, my name is Peter Barnes and live here in Winston-Salem. 2019 is the 400th anniversary of two significant events within the life of our nation and within the life of our community. 400 years ago, the Mayflower Compact was written. It was the first set of principles of self-government that the settlers who were coming from England brought, that was a precursor to the founding of this nation, and was intended to be an experiment in democracy, would be a light to the world. But it's also the 400th anniversary of the first slaves being brought to Jamestown, Virginia. The nation of America has a glorious and a tragic history, as does Winston-Salem. Salem was founded as a settlement of Christian missionaries from Europe who came to be a light for Christ here, but they also had slaves, and the church even owned slaves. And that tragic and glorious history of our community needs to be changed, and removing those vestiges, I recommend a change in the name.
Giorgio Hyatt and Richard Miller.
My name is Rooney Craig. I live in Winston-Salem, and I appreciate the opportunity to speak in favor of changing the name of the Dixie Classic Fair, perhaps to the Winston-Salem Fair or the Triad Classic Fair. Some of us hurt deeply because of the name of the Dixie Classic Fair. Others believe no harm intended, it's just a name. As a community of brothers and sisters called to live together and love one another, ask why wouldn't we want to change the name of the fair to one that would not cause hurt to anyone? Change can be difficult, but change can help us grow as individuals and as a community. My hope and prayer is that our city will unite and change the name of the fair. Thank you.
Hello, I'm Giorgio Hyatt. I'm from Winston-Salem. I kind of like Carolina Classic. I stand as a military kid, special ops brat, who's kind of, I guess I'm kind of a carpetbagger. I kind of lived in and out halfway, but have loved this country and his family has served it. There's something that is competing with us that I think is super interesting, super hopeful in this, and that is a question about heritage and some of the beauty and glory of the heritage of the South, both black and white. But one of the things I want to challenge those who are coming with this heritage take is one of the great heritages of the South is hospitality. And hospitality opens up and welcomes people in. I also want to speak as a Christian pastor because many people are speaking to this as, or coming to this as a Christian, as a Christian person. I'm part of a denomination of the Southern Presbyterian heritage, the authority of Scripture, the lordship and necessity of Christ.
Sir, your time is up. Ken Scott and Stephen Engel.
Good evening. I'm Richard Miller from Winston-Salem. I don't think we should change any names. I think Dixie Classic Fair is fine. It doesn't mean I'm in a minority myself. It doesn't mean anything about slavery. The word Dixie is a derivative possibly from the architects or the surveyors, Mason and Dixon, and a derivative of the French word dix for 10, which was a coin minted for New Orleans and Louisiana, and people went down there, they would get Dixies is what they would call it. Somehow that name was flung up through the whole South. I don't think it's a good idea to do it. It doesn't mean slavery. It doesn't have anything to do with it. The best thing to do is to leave it alone. This will be the most tremendous public relations blunder you've ever seen, and you will lose 50% of your audience for the fair. If you want to kill the fair, change the name for political correctness. These folks have a reason to be upset about things, but I appreciate your time. Don't change it.
My name's Ken Scott. I'm from Winston-Salem. I think we should leave the name alone, leave it as a Dixie Classic Fair. As the man spoke before me, the definition of Dixie came from a French word dix, which was a coin. That's where it got started, and from there it spread. I've been coming to the fair for years, never seen any problem or never heard anybody say anything about Dixie Classic being a racist thing. It just doesn't fit Dixie. There's too many things that are Dixie, so what are you gonna do, change the world? But let's leave it alone. Thank you.
Lynn Scholl and Harold Day.
I'm Stephen Angle from Winston-Salem. Many of our neighbors are voicing their opposition to removing the name Dixie in this way. The name is not offensive to me, therefore it is not offensive. This is not only faulty logic, it is amazingly egocentric and ethnocentric. Loving my neighbors means listening to my neighbors, all my neighbors. Let's change the name to the Carolina Classic Fair. Thank you for listening.
My name is Leah Scholl, and I'm the pastor of Wake Forest Baptist Church here to worship on the campus of Wake Forest University. And I want to live in a fair city. And I want to live in a place where we take care of one another. And I want to live somewhere that my tax dollars go to support love and caring for our neighbors. Change the name. It's racist.
Jeff Whitey and Ricky Amos.
Harold Day, Winston-Salem, Forsyth County, all my life. I'm greatly offended by a few people who wanted to make a smoke screen in this town and try to drive a wedge between us. We need to be community-minded all the time about no matter what color we are. It's about we the people, all of us. The name is just a name. It's been that way for years. How many people in this room have been here all their life for the last 10 years? That's the question. We don't need outsiders telling us how to run our town. So anyhow, that's what I want to say. Thank you a lot.
My name is Jeff Whitney, and I'm a longtime resident of Forsyth County. Despite existence of numerous benign and non-racist historical and etymological references, the word Dixie's critics focused almost exclusively on the song Dixie, a favorite of the great emancipator himself, President Abraham Lincoln. Supposedly, Dixie was composed by an Ohioan abolitionist, Dan Emmett, in New York City in 1859. Ironically, evidence exists that Emmett may have collaborated with an African-American musically inclined family, the Snowdens, who lived directly beside Emmett's grandfather in Knox County, Ohio. The Snowdens, who left behind a rich documentary chronicling their life and music, embody the complicated, ambiguous histories of both American music and race relations. The Snowdens were among no less than 37 claimants to Dixie authorship by 1908. Dan Emmett is buried in a well-tended cemetery in his hometown of Mount Vernon, Ohio. Less than 3 miles away, in a more obscure cemetery, lie the graves of the Snowden brothers, Ben and Lou. An inscription over their grave, placed there in 1940 by a local fraternal order, simply states, "They taught Dan Emmett Dixie." Their father is also believed to have influenced Emmett. Thank you very much. And I also have a petition here signed by 200 people to not rename the Dixie Classic Fair. Does anybody, do I need to give this to anyone?
Staff, somebody can take that.
My name's Ricky Amos. I'm from Stokes County, lived in North Carolina all my life. I think this forum is a waste of time, taxpayers' dollars, just like the first gentleman said that was at the podium. The name's just a name. I don't think it needs changing. That's all I got.
Dwight Goodman and Carrie Bardwell. There should be somebody, but you can go ahead. Dwight Goodman.
Thank you. My name is Carrie Bardwell, and I am a native of Winston-Salem, born and raised in Winston-Salem, North Carolina. In my 80 years of life, I have witnessed Jim Crow, segregation, depressions with the S, and it hurts my heart to see us scrambling over a name change or why don't we just do the right thing? You know, right is right and wrong is wrong, regardless of who do it. And I think that the name should be changed to Dixie Classic it's a derogatory word, and it's also a racist word. And I don't care what you may say it came from. It's to us, it is derogatory. And I think we should change the name to Twin City Classic or
Ma'am, your
Carolina
time is
Classic.
up.
Thank you.
Karen Walter and Cheryl Harry.
Thank you for the opportunity to speak. I'm Karen Walter, born and raised here in Winston-Salem. I have been attending the Dixie Classic Fair since birth. And while research suggests that the word Dixie may not have originated as a derogatory term, unfortunately it has evolved into a cultural term that for many symbolizes oppression. There are many people that I know and love who use this word without meaning harm to others. Yet there are other people who very much intend to promote the hidden derogatory meaning that often comes with the word Dixie. A municipal organization such as the City of Winston-Salem should guard against speech and written language that is discriminatory and divisive. And as I last saw, the fair is a product of this good city of Winston-Salem. While the history of the word Dixie may be innocent enough, the word now incites division. The fair has a history of change. One simply needs to read the document on the fair history on the fair website in order to see—
Ma'am, your time is up.
Thank you.
Gloria Samuels and Mitch Vestal.
Hi, I'm Cheryl Harry, and I'm a resident of Winston-Salem. Since the fair's inception, the name has been changed 6 times according to your website. In 1956, it was changed to Dixie. I just need everybody to imagine what was life like in 1956. It was changed to Dixie to attract a broader audience. Who was that audience? I believe the name should be changed to Carolina Classic. In 2019, we need to attract a broader audience. We need to widen the tent and open it up to everyone.
Good afternoon. My name is Gloria Samuels, and I believe that if we want to attract harmony, if we want to attract love, if we really want to be a united community, I believe that we need to understand that there is an importance to a name. While it may not mean anything to one, it means something to another. And if a name denotes something derogatory that tears away at a culture, I believe as a community, we have to address it. I would love to see the name changed. Carolina, Piedmont, whatever you want to change it to, but something that's inclusive with everybody, because everybody needs to have a sense that it's their fair and not just one sense of the culture.
Sir Walter Mack and Valerie Brott.
My name is Mitch Vestal. You know, we bought this t-shirt for my daughter a couple years ago. We had no idea we were tagging her as a racist. You know, the Dixie Classic Fair, while we're all crediting Winston-Salem with the name Dixie Classic, it actually began as the basketball tournament in Raleigh. And while the Big Four teams had not yet desegregated, we invited Oscar Robertson's teams, and if you do your homework, you'll see a litany of players of all colors that came and enjoyed basketball in this state before it was broadly acceptable to do that. I come to the fair probably 6 nights a week, and it strikes me as odd that this place, which is a remarkable melting pot of
Sir,
people
your time is up.
coming to look for a good time, has created all of this for our community. Thank you.
Thank you. My name is Sir Walter Micah, pastor, Union Baptist Church, 1200 North Trade Street, live in Winston-Salem, North Carolina. When the state of Louisiana removes symbols of Dixie, when the state of Mississippi refuses to sing the song Dixie, when South Carolina removes the symbol of the Dixie by the Confederate flag, when you have Alabama, who is now no longer using it as a fight song, it is time for Winston-Salem, North Carolina to join the other Dixie states and remove Dixie from our fair. When we took down the city, when we took down the statue, the protesters were singing one song, and they were singing, "I wish I was in Dixieland." It is a symbol of hate. It is a symbol of separation and division.
Sir, your time is up. Please wrap
I
up your
rest my
comments.
case. Take it down.
Brockenbrout and Leon McCulloch.
Good evening. My name is Valerie Brockenbrough. I'm a resident of Winston-Salem. I propose Winston-Salem Classic Fair. The Dixie name is associated with white supremacy, whether people like it or not. The fair has changed names many times over the years. Time to change the names. Change is good. It's good for our community, and we need to change the name. Thank you.
Hello, my name is Leon McCullough. And imagine yourself, when you was born, you was given a name. That name meant something to your parents, and it should mean something to you. I don't believe that this is a waste of time. So I throw this out of the window. Any time when it affects the citizens of Winston-Salem, it's not a waste of time. So I recommend that we rename the fair Carolina Classic.
Cynthia Mack and Cheryl Lindsay.
Good evening. My name is Cynthia Mack. I grew up here all of my life. And I grew up as a child, living not far from here. Going to the Dixie Classic Fair was a big deal. My parents didn't teach racism, so it was not an issue. But as I grew up, I found out. I felt like a fool almost, because I was contributing to tax dollars and everything else when I didn't know that it was a racist deal at the time. So I don't want my nieces and nephews to grow up feeling like fools and being shameful of Winston-Salem, North Carolina, when everybody is being progressive. So please, and those who are in opposition, please consider putting yourself in somebody else's place. It's not to divide the community. But we want to bring unity and community because we love Winston-Salem. Thank you.
Angela Daniels and Ariana Daniels.
Good evening. My name is Cheryl Lindsay, and I was born and raised in Winston-Salem. Keeping in mind, actually, all of the reasons that were stated thus far for changing the name, as well as the 5 key principles that we were all asked to ensure that we remembered, I propose that we change the name to Carolina Classic Fair. Carolina Classic Fair, Arts and Innovations Fair, something that brings unity and love, inclusivity to our location here. Thank you.
Hi, my name is Angela Daniels, and I'm a resident of Winston-Salem. I think it's interesting how we work together, we shop together, we eat together, but when it comes to changing a name that is very insulting to the minority, the African-American race, and is loaded with a lot of racism and discrimination and slavery and very bad history for myself, my child, and our community, I think it's just interesting how people oppose changing it for the better. When you know better, you do better. If you really dig deep in history, you will see it's far beyond just what we have today. It spans back for many, many years. So I do recommend that we change the name to the Carolina Classic because it brings us together and not divide us. Many are arguing about the fact of how it's going to break down and tear us apart. Well, we are already tore apart. And anything that offends you and hurts you and you want to bark at people because they are offended by a name change, that lets me know where you stand. Change it to the Carolina Classic.
Fleming Elamine and Garrett Stewart.
Hello, my name is Ariana Daniels, and my sign says peace and unity. I am for the name change because the name change is discriminating. Dixie was a land where African Americans picked cotton, and that's a form of slavery. And the meaning behind the word Dixie has a very negative history, and I don't feel comfortable going to a place where the name is discriminating. I think that the fair should be changed to the Triad Classic or the Carolina Fair. I am for the name change. Also, for the people who want to keep the name change, please learn your history. Thank you.
Good evening. Fleming Elamine, native son, born here in 1952 at Katy B. Reynolds Hospital. 1 year later, in 1953, Carolina Fair was the only fair my parents could take me to. Years later, Dixie Classic Fair opened up their doors, and the Carolina Fair lost its economic base. My suggestion is Carolina Classic to bring us both together because integration never really integrated the city of Winston-Salem. It desegregated. When we go to church, we go to the mall, we go to our institutions of higher learning, unfortunately, and we're still pretty much just desegregated, not really integrated. So I think Carolina Classic is the best name for an integrated fun time for the family here in Winston-Salem. Thank you very much.
Dr. Kia Hood-Scott and Sarah Avery.
I'm Garrett Stewart from Pofftown, and I have many, many friends that have a feeling of not changing the name, and they haven't been able to come because they're home with their family and doing obligations they have, and they're reluctant, and they really hate that they can't be here tonight. My 4-year-old, which was able to have dinner with me, says this.
I love the Dixie Classic Fair!
And I love the Dixie Classic Fair. I won a blue ribbon over there making cheese biscuits this past year. And I'm looking forward to competing and being a part of the fair and the agricultural and the family side of it, the family fair. And I'm looking forward to keeping that going. And I just like the name of it, and I really don't think it should change. It's just that simple. Thank you.
Hi, my name is Dr. Kia Hood-Scott, and I am a resident of Winston-Salem for the past 20 years, and I love Winston-Salem, North Carolina. I am for us changing the name to the Carolina Classic Fair. While moving here, I learned that Winston-Salem is a beautiful community. It's a community that gathers lots of people together, but I believe that the name Dixie divides us. If we're gonna make this right, Winston-Salem, we gotta make it right. I believe that if Dolly Parton can remove Dixie Stampede from her show, Winston-Salem ought to do the same. We cannot live in peace with a word that divides us. So Winston-Salem, let's make it right. Let's do what's right. And I bet you won't lose people if you change your name. More people will come.
Robert Hicks and Derek Henson.
Good evening. My name is Sarah Avery, and I'm from Winston-Salem. A gentleman before me mentioned that this conversation is driving a wedge, and it makes me really sad that he doesn't already know that there's a wedge in Winston-Salem. There's two Winston-Salems. There's a history of oppression and a legacy of white supremacy in the country, the South, and our city. I don't want to erase history. I want us to account for it. I want us to repent for it. And I want us to be careful about who we honor and why. I want to honor the resilience of the African American community in the South. I want to honor their voices and experiences that Dixie is offensive. This is not about political correctness. It's about taking steps towards repair and repentance for our history. Changing the name honors the voices and the hurt of the African American community, and it provides an example of how we are to love and care for one another. Please change the name to Carolina Classic Fair.
Well, I came down here and made my mind up I wasn't going to get angry, but that didn't last long. I don't think the name of the fair should be changed like they did that cowardly act the mayor did when they took the statue down. That was cowardly. And my great-great-grandpa died in that war, and he cries from the grave not to let our traditions and our culture be stripped from us because, and a man's done called himself down today, he said he's a carpetbagger, because carpetbaggers come down here, that's what he called himself, carpetbaggers come down here and scallywags help them to tear down our culture and our tradition, and I will boycott the fair. Everybody I know, I will try to influence them to boycott the fair, and you can appease the minority, or you can alienate the majority. You do the best you can.
John Kemp and Tane Smith.
Derek Henson. I've lived here in Forsyth County my whole life. My parents probably started bringing me to the fair probably about 1969. When I was 5 years old, I brought my children to the fair, and now I bring my grandchildren to the fair. Dixie itself is a generic term for the South. The South has a culture. It's a distinct culture, not just the old South where there was slavery and so forth, but the South where there's front porches, the South where there's waving and throwing your hand up at people that you don't even know. There's churches of faith all across the South, speaking to strangers that you come across in public places, just making small talk with them. The fair, Dixie Classic Fair, has always been bigger. It's bigger than a city fair. It's bigger than a Winston fair. It was bigger than Forsyth County. It was bigger than a county fair. It was bigger than the state fair. Why did you need to go to the state fair when you had the Dixie Classic Fair? It was something that was bigger than a city fair, bigger than a county fair, bigger than a state fair. It was the Dixie Classic Fair. It was the biggest fair that was in the Southeast. And then what it means: food, exhibits, rides, and so much more.
Please wrap up your comments.
So much more.
John Kemp. Tane Smith. Laney Smith.
Hi, my name is Tawny Smith. I'm from Winston-Salem. I've lived here for over 30 years now. The fair is memories for a lot of people and a lot of children. To try to make it a controversial word of empowerment or oppression is just lies. You're taking away everything that we liked. You know, it's a fair, people, a fair, Dixie. I have friends who've named animals, horses, people, family members, Dixie. Do you think they did it out of prejudice or something?
No.
No, they didn't. An animal knows no prejudice. If you're going to change the name, make it the greatest Dixie Classic Fair.
I'm Larry Smith. I'm a resident of Winston-Salem. I come from the hollows of the mountains of North Carolina. And to me, when I hear Dixie, I hear joy. Now, there may be some of y'all that hear prejudice. My grandchildren does not hear prejudice. Do I need to go through the Webster Dictionary and educate my children on all these words that people may be offended with? No, because they're your problem that you're offended with them. They have no inkling in my brain that this is a prejudice. I worked for a company here in Winston-Salem and integrated that company from all white people to be a mixed, diverse representation of Forsyth County. My children equate Dixie to joy. Let's not muck up the word. It's a $10 note that the French published when they were in control of Louisiana.
Sir, your time is up.
Thank you. Do not change the name.
I believe it's Jim Smith Jr. and Jack Shelton Jr. Okay. Robert Johnston and Jody Colonna.
My name is William Smith Jr., and I've lived in Winston-Salem for over 71 years. I took livestock and chickens and stuff to the fair in the past. But when you think of Dixie, the first thing flies in your mind is that flag. And the flag was to honor those men that fought during the Civil War, to honor them. But now that flag is a reputation. It represents hatred, white supremacists, and Ku Klux Klan. Dixie has got to go.
Hi, Kat. I'm here because I'm a native of Winston-Salem, and I'm not in favor of changing the name, mostly because of the extreme tax burden that it would place on the residents of Winston-Salem. I think that they would find it far more oppressive to raise their property taxes, vehicle registration taxes, or however the city offsets the over $1 million cost of changing the fare. To me, it doesn't really matter if we change the fare, but I would urge everyone to consider the financial and just the huge tax burden that this would be. For me, if the name changes, I won't be upset, I won't be mad, because I know that I'll still live and die for Dixie, and that the opinion of the spoilers really doesn't matter, because if they want to pay for it and be burdened and oppressed by taxes, then so be that.
Liz Carlson and Mary Staples.
Hello, my name is Liz Carlson. Winston-Salem and the surrounding region does not exist in a vacuum, and we have to think of economic growth and our future. We need to attract jobs, we need to attract transplants, we need to attract entrepreneurs. We are competing against cities such as Durham, and to some extent, Raleigh, Charlotte, and Greensboro. Young people are more progressive than older people, and I believe the majority of young people will feel more comfortable in a city that is looking and acting in a progressive way. So let's look 10 years ahead from now, let's look 20 years ahead from now, and see where we want to be. We used to be the biggest city in the state, we're now number 5. This is a regional fair. This fair has a lot.
Ma'am, your time is up.
I recommend Piedmont because it celebrates the rural input from our neighboring counties.
Nathan Parrish and Megan Anderson.
I'm Mary Staples. I've lived in Winston-Salem all of my life. I've been proud to live in Winston-Salem, but I can say now that I am having regrets about a lot of things. I don't think we should change the name. Dixie to me is the South. Anybody that lives in the South, if you're not proud of the South, then go in a different direction. You've got the East, the West, and the North. If you want to change things, then I guess you're going to have to take the word South off of the compass and do away with that too.
Good evening. My name is Nathan Parrish. I have lived in Winston-Salem for over 30 years and serve as a pastor here for the last 28 years. I'm going to be brief. A minute is brief anyway, but I'm here to speak in favor of the name change. We need to change this name. Names mean things. Names carry histories with them. This name carries a history with it. We remain in a situation in our community and our culture of deep woundedness. I'm thankful for this opportunity for us to come together today as a community. Even though it can be trying and challenging, we are hearing and seeing that we have much work to still do in our communities and in our relationships. Change the name. The time has come.
Carlton A.G. Everly and Zanet Wilson.
Hi, my name is Megan Anderson. I am a Winston-Salem native. I have been to the Dixie Classic Fair every one of my 35 years from the time I was a newborn. To me, it brings memories and nostalgia for time spent with family. None of that nostalgia comes from the name Dixie. It comes from quality time invested in each other. I am a Southerner. I am a North Carolinian. I am a Winston-Salem native. Much more than any of those things, I call myself a daughter of Christ. And so there is no tradition, there is no name, there is no thing that I value more than God's creation. And because of that, I choose to stand with and hurt with God's creation and my brothers and sisters that this name causes hurt to, that it brings up oppression for. If it hurts my neighbor, it hurts me. So I stand in favor of changing the name.
The name is racist because the song is racist. It celebrates and waxes nostalgic about the time of enslavement of African people. Black people pay taxes in this county. If you want to fly the flag or have a statue or sing the song in your own private space, that's fine. Don't ask my people to support it with our tax dollars. It's amazing how white people can identify with the suffering of Jews. You wouldn't want the Third Reich Classic Fair. You wouldn't want the SS Nazi Classic Fair. But somehow we're happy and comfortable with the Dixie Classic Fair. In '62, when U of M was going to be desegregated, Kennedy and Barnett had a agreement. Barnett goes to football game, hears that song, and reneges on the agreement. It was racist, it is racist, and this shouldn't be about popular vote. This should be a commission making a moral decision.
I was born and raised here in Winston-Salem, and all my life has been called the Dixie Classic Fair. I feel as though this is a waste of time to change the name, and this gathering is a waste of time also. Leave it like it is. And I say to all the black ministers and pastors, this time should have been put towards making a change, a positive change in our black communities. Have a good day.
Thank you, Mr. Wilson. This will conclude our public input session. I want to remind you that if you were not called on to speak this evening, that we still want to hear from you. Please take one of the comment cards from the table in the back, complete it, and drop it in the box on the table. As for the next steps, staff is going to compile the responses beginning at the end of the day on June 3rd. They'll provide that information back to our Fair Planning Committee by our next meeting of June 10th. During that meeting, the Fair Planning Committee will work towards providing a recommendation for the Public Assembly Facilities Commission in July so that they can make a recommendation to the council in August.
Before we conclude tonight, we did have a few more elected officials that came in that we do want to recognize. Council members Clark, Bessie, and Councilmember McIntosh are in the building tonight. So if we could recognize those folks.
Thank you so much for coming, and this will conclude the meeting.